What is the Atman? So I just thought I could make this really easy and say whatever she said about Brahman applies to Atman. Next. Now I can say a little more than that. Well, the reason this is even doable is that because the basic equation in Vedanta, and the one propounded by Shankara, is that Brahman and Atman are one. That's the basic equation. I remember I first discovered this at the Santa Barbara Public Library when I was 15. I was walking home from high school, waiting for my dad to pick me up. So I went and they had a book on Shankara. So I was reading this and I came to the sentence, Brahman and Atman are one. And I was so excited. I was in this quiet library. I looked around and said, Brahman and Atman are one. And it seemed like the most beautiful thing I'd ever read in my life. This is the answer. Brahman and it's just, why did that grab me? Why was that so important? Because it means that when my body dies, I don't die. When my body is sick, I am not sick. When the mind is depressed, I am not depressed. None of this has to do with the real part of me. The real me is infinite. It's infinite spirit. The Atman is absolute being, absolute joy, absolute consciousness. The Atman is the light which illumines our mind. It's the light of all understanding. It is the witness to all of our actions. It is the witness to all of our states of waking state, dream state, and the dreamless sleep state. So the cool thing is that in our spiritual practice, we're not trying to become something other than what we are. We're not trying to become, like the perfect thing. Because what we're doing is we're trying to be what we are already. We're trying to uncover our ignorance. We're trying to uncover the clouds that get in the way of our understanding. So we're just trying to be what we've always been and who we are. And that is pure, eternal, absolutely free being. We all seek freedom because that's who we are. We are the nature of perfect freedom. We are limitless, and that's why we hate limitations, because we know that deep in ourselves we have no limitations. We are pure, infinite spirit. And that's why nothing finite can ever satisfy our infinite longing, because we are the nature of the infinite. And keeping this in mind is really helpful. Just to keep this thought in mind is very strengthening, because we all of us tend to fall in love with in all the wrong places, which means we try to find happiness outside of ourselves, whether it's with a stupid guy or a stupid girl or a stupid cream puff or an iPad or something. It's something outside of ourselves. It's completely unfulfilling, because the only thing that will ever make us happy is turning within, because that source of infinite joy is within us. We have to turn within to find that joy that's already our own pure nature. So the funny thing is that we always tend to think of the Atman as like being an itty-bitty little thing. And we have to understand that the Atman isn't an itty-bitty part of Brahman. It's not a portion of Brahman. It's not a reflection of Brahman. It's not a part of Brahman that kind of merges into Brahman. The Atman is the whole shebang. It's the big fish. You can't, because Brahman and Atman are one, you can't have two infinites. That's not possible. Which means the Atman, being one with Brahman, is that infinite, all-pervading existence. And this seems to contradict our reason, because we think of ourselves as individual beings. So we think of Atman as like one per customer or something. But the Atman isn't an individual concept. It's not an individual concept. And this has very important social ramifications. It's the basis, this truth about the Atman is the basis of all ethics. It's the basis of all human behavior, because we live and exist through that unity of the Atman. Swami Vivekananda said, love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. Your neighbor is yourself. If there's only one infinite divine reality, then why do we have two different names for it? Why do we have Brahman and Atman? Well, for the same reason that I call my mom, Mom, and other people call her Shantama or Hilda or Mrs. Densmore. Because I call my mother Mom within the context of the family. Within the context of her friends, they called her Hilda or Shantama. And with the context of works, they might call her Mrs. Densmore, or you call your wife Honey, or you call your husband Sweetie. But someone at work will call him something entirely different. It's the same human being, but it depends on the context. So the word changes according to the context. In exactly the same way, there's only one infinite reality in this changing universe. There's only one unchanging reality. And that reality we call Brahman in the context of the universe. In the context of the living being, we call that same one reality the Atman. What is important isn't the name. What is important is the concept, is the reality of it. And the truth, that the name implies. And that there's a birthless, deathless reality that is at the core of our personality, and that is the real us. The Bhagavad Gita, just knowing this gives us so much strength. The Bhagavad Gita says, know this Atman to be unborn, undying, never ceasing, never beginning, birthless, deathless, unchanging forever. How can it die the death of the body? Bodies are said to die, but that which possesses the body is eternal. In the West, we tend to think of the human being as dichotomous. We have the body and mind. In the East, in the Hindu tradition, we think of the human being as trichotomous. There is the body, and there's the mind, and then there's the Atman. The body and the mind are both composed of matter. The mind might be more subtle matter, but it is matter nevertheless, and both are external to the Atman. And that's a very important concept, and it's unique to the Hindu tradition, and it's the contribution of Hinduism to the world's religious consciousness. And that also gives us great strength, that when our mind goes through stuff, we realize it's matter. Both the body and mind are composed of matter. They'll have their ups and downs. They were born and they will die. But the Atman will never do that. As long as I think of myself as a body, I will be miserable, because I'll always be at the mercy of the inevitable, which is birth and death and illness and decay. But once I see myself as spirit, then I began to be free. Only then will I know that I have no limitations. Only then will I know that I'm pure, perfect, and joyful. And I will be fearless, because I know that whatever, that deep part of me, that who I really am, is a part of me that can never grow old, that can never die, that will never need Botox, never need to worry. And that knowledge gives us great strength.